Did you know that in Australia, you can now be fined or even arrested for what you post online, attend in person, or say in public? Sounds like something out of a dystopian novel, right? But it's happening, quietly and legally. In 2025, new laws and hidden regulations are chipping away at freedoms most Aussies took for granted: speech, privacy, movement, and even how you live your day-to-day life. From surveillance creeping into your messages, to bans on lifestyle choices like vaping or junk food ads. Australia is shifting fast. And the most alarming part, most people don't even know it's happening. These aren't just headlines. They're real restrictions affecting your daily choices, with more on the way. So, what exactly are these new rules? Who's behind them? And what can you do before it's too late? Stick around, because what you'll hear next might just change how you see your freedom in Australia. Number 1. Freedom of speech. What if saying the wrong thing online could cost you thousands of dollars, or even land you in court? In today's Australia, that's no longer a hypothetical. In recent years, new laws aimed at tackling misinformation and hate speech have given authorities sweeping powers to monitor, censor, and punish public expression. The 2025 Misinformation and Disinformation Bill, for example, allows government-appointed bodies to decide what counts as harmful content, even if it's just an opinion. That means everyday Australians can now be penalised for what they share on social media, especially if it challenges official narratives. But it doesn't stop there. Peaceful protests, once a cornerstone of democratic expression, are being increasingly restricted. During the pandemic, we saw citizens arrested simply for promoting protests on Facebook. And even after lockdowns ended, those emergency powers have quietly lingered. New protest laws in states like Victoria and New South Wales make it easier for police to break up demonstrations, fine organisers, and even ban protests altogether if they're deemed disruptive. But who decides what's disruptive? That's the problem. The line between protecting public safety and silencing dissent is becoming dangerously thin. The scariest part? Many Australians don't realise these freedoms are already slipping away, because these changes happen quietly through vague legal language and slow policy shifts. Most people don't see the danger until it's too late. Free speech doesn't disappear overnight. It fades bit by bit, law by law, until people stop questioning anything at all. If we lose the right to speak freely, to challenge power, or to share ideas, even unpopular ones, we lose the foundation of democracy itself. So ask yourself, how free are you really if you're too scared to speak your mind? Number 2, digital privacy. Think your online life is private? Think again. In Australia, your digital footprint is being tracked, stored, and, in many cases, legally accessed by government agencies without your full knowledge. Under the mandatory metadata retention laws, every phone call you make, every text you send, and every website you visit is logged and stored for at least 2 years. You don't need to be a criminal to be watched. Just being online is enough. In 2025, these powers were expanded even further, with proposed laws allowing law enforcement to take over your accounts, alter data, or delete it entirely, all without a warrant. It might sound extreme, but this isn't science fiction. In recent years, the Australian government introduced the Identify and Disrupt Act, which gives police and intelligence agencies the power to access private accounts, impersonate users, and collect digital evidence without your consent. Critics have called it one of the most invasive surveillance regimes in any Western democracy. And here's the kicker: most people have no idea it exists. While it's framed as a tool to fight crime and terrorism, the implications for everyday Australians are chilling. Your messages, photos, and even your location data are no longer truly yours. We often think, well, I've got nothing to hide. But privacy isn't just about hiding wrongdoing. It's about having the freedom to live without being constantly watched. When people know they're being monitored, they change how they speak, what they search for, and even what they believe. That's called the chilling effect, and it's already happening. As digital surveillance becomes the norm, we risk creating a society where silence feels safer than honesty. So next time you go online, ask yourself, who's watching and why? Number 3, movement restrictions. Remember when crossing state borders in Australia required a permit? What started as a temporary pandemic measure has now laid the groundwork for more permanent controls on how freely we can move within our own country. In 2025, several states have retained or proposed new versions of emergency powers that give them the authority to restrict travel, enforce curfews, or even ban gatherings during so-called high-risk events. While these powers are often explained as necessary for public health or safety, they raise serious concerns about how easily your right to move can be taken away. For example, some states can now issue control orders that limit your ability to attend protests, enter certain public areas, or travel without government approval, based not on something you've done, but on what you might do. And that's not all. Digital tracking through apps, facial recognition at airports, and smart checkpoints on highways are becoming more common, allowing authorities to monitor and control physical movement in ways we've never seen before. All of this is happening quietly, in the background, while most people focus on more visible issues. The right to move freely within your own country has always been a basic part of living in a free society. But when that freedom is taken away, slowly, silently, under the cover of safety or convenience, we stop being citizens and start becoming controlled subjects. Ask yourself, if you needed permission to leave your own city, would you still feel free? The truth is, these laws don't disappear after a crisis ends. They linger, waiting to be used again. And unless we stay alert, movement could become a privilege, not a right. Number 4, lifestyle limits. Imagine waking up one day and finding that your favorite snack, vape, or energy drink has been banned. Not because you broke any law, but because the government decided it's no longer safe for public consumption. In 2025, Australia has taken a bold new step in regulating personal lifestyle choices, with sweeping bans and restrictions aimed at controlling health outcomes. While this might sound like a positive move on the surface, it raises a serious question. At what point does public health policy start to override personal freedom? Several states have already introduced heavy limitations on vaping products, including flavor bans and tight purchase restrictions, even for adults. There are also increasing discussions about sugar taxes, warning labels on high-calorie foods, and proposals to regulate fast food advertising during certain hours. In some councils, there are even limits being considered around pet ownership, water usage, and garden sizes in the name of environmental sustainability. These policies, while often backed by good intentions, are starting to shape what you can eat, buy, and do inside your own home. We all want to live healthier lives, and yes, many of these measures are based on scientific research. But when personal responsibility is replaced with government mandates, it sets a dangerous precedent. Freedom doesn't just mean the right to speak or move, it also means the right to make choices, even unpopular ones, about your own body and lifestyle. When those decisions are made for you, for your own good, ask yourself, where does it stop? Once we give up the right to choose what we eat, smoke, or buy, we risk losing control over our private lives, one restriction at a time. Number 5, what you can do. By now, you might be feeling frustrated or even helpless. But here's the truth. Awareness is the first line of defense. Most of these laws and changes happened quietly because the public wasn't paying attention. The good news? You still have power. Knowing your rights, understanding the law, and staying informed are some of the strongest tools you have. Start by reading proposed legislation in your state. It might sound boring, But buried in those documents are the policies that shape your daily life. The more you know, the harder it becomes for these changes to pass unnoticed. Next, make your voice heard. Whether it's signing petitions, attending local council meetings, or simply emailing your elected representatives, it matters. Politicians are supposed to serve the people, but if they're never challenged, they'll act without accountability. Support independent journalism, follow watchdog groups, and be part of online communities that track government decisions. Even sharing videos like this one can make a difference, because the more people know, the less they can be controlled. Silence and apathy are exactly what allow these freedoms to vanish. Lastly, don't wait for someone else to fix it. You don't need to be an expert or activist to stand up for your rights. Small actions build momentum. Encourage open discussions with friends and family. Challenge the idea that it's just a small rule or it doesn't affect me. Because once enough small rules pile up, freedom becomes something you used to have, not something you live with. So ask yourself this: are you watching history happen, or are you part of the pushback? The choice is still yours, for now. Number 6, call to action. If you've watched this far, then you already care more than most. That matters, because change never starts with the masses. It starts with a few people who are paying attention, asking the hard questions, and refusing to accept silence as safety. The truth is, freedoms rarely vanish all at once. They erode slowly, quietly, behind polished speeches and comforting promises. And by the time people realize what's happened, it's often too late to turn back. That's why your awareness right now is powerful. But awareness only matters if it leads to action. So here's what you can do right now. First, hit the like button if this video opened your eyes. It tells the algorithm this message is worth spreading. Then, subscribe so you don't miss future videos like this, because we're just getting started. Drop a comment below and share your thoughts. What changes have you noticed in your city, your state, your day-to-day life? Your experience could be the wake-up call someone else needs. And most importantly, share this video with a friend, a family member, or anyone who still believes that it can't happen here. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out our next video, Digital Surveillance You Didn't Know Was Legal in 2025. It exposes even more layers of control happening right under our noses. Remember, this isn't just content, it's a warning. But it's also a call to stay alert, stay informed, and most of all, stay loud. Because once you give up the right to speak, move, choose, and live freely, getting it back is far harder than keeping it. The question now isn't whether freedom is under threat. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Number 7, disclaimer. Before we wrap up completely, it's important to include this reminder. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. While we've done our best to present facts, examples, and expert-backed insights, none of what you've heard should be taken as legal advice. Laws and regulations in Australia can change quickly and vary between states, so it's always best to consult with a qualified legal professional or official government sources if you're facing a specific issue related to your rights or freedoms. We're not here to tell you what to think, but to encourage you to think critically. This video is designed to raise awareness about potential overreach, shifts in policy, and how these changes could impact ordinary Australians. It's based on publicly available information, government documents, media reports, and expert commentary. Still, every viewer's situation is different, and how these policies affect you may depend on where you live, what you do, and how engaged you are with current affairs. Finally, we respect the role of government in maintaining safety and order, but we also believe in the importance of transparency, accountability, and the protection of civil liberties. Our goal is not to create fear, but to spark dialogue. If you disagree with anything presented here, we welcome respectful discussion in the comments. Debate is a sign of a healthy society. Just remember, the moment we stop questioning is the moment we stop progressing. So take this video as a starting point, not an end point, and keep learning, researching, and staying informed. Number 8. Final thought. Freedom isn't something you always notice when you have it, but you'll definitely notice when it's gone. The changes happening in Australia today aren't just about politics, laws, or policies. They're about the subtle rewriting of what it means to be a free individual. When you can't speak your mind without fear, when your movements are tracked, when your personal choices are dictated by someone else, that's no longer freedom. That's quiet control. And the scariest part, it doesn't come with sirens or alarms. It comes wrapped in comfort, safety, and the phrase, "it's for your own good." History has shown us time and again, rights that are given can also be taken. And it never happens all at once. It happens piece by piece, regulation by regulation, until one day you wake up and realize the life you're living looks nothing like the one you once had. It starts with silence. Then it turns into compliance. And eventually it becomes normal. That's why now is the time to draw the line. Not when it's too late to speak up, but while your voice still matters. So if this video stirred something in you, anger, concern, curiosity, don't ignore it. Reflect on it. Talk about it. Share it. Because the future of freedom in Australia isn't just decided in Parliament. It's decided at dinner tables, on phones, in online communities, and in the quiet choices we make every day. The real question is not just what freedoms we're losing, but what we're willing to do to protect what's left. The system only works when people are watching. So stay awake, stay aware. And never assume that freedom will protect itself. Number 9. Wake-up call. This isn't just a political issue. It's not left or right, progressive or conservative. It's about the slow dismantling of personal autonomy under the guise of safety, convenience, and control. Every freedom lost is framed as temporary, necessary, or for the greater good. But how many of those temporary measures have actually been rolled back? How many powers granted during emergencies have become permanent? When you look at the pattern, it's hard not to see the bigger picture. This isn't about what might happen. It's already happening, and most people are too distracted to notice. You don't need to be an expert to feel that something's changing. You can sense it in the way people speak more cautiously, in how public spaces are watched more closely, and in how often you're asked to trade your privacy for access or your freedom for security. The question isn't whether these changes are happening. The question is why so few are talking about them. And the answer is simple. When people are comfortable, they don't resist. When the threat is quiet, they don't react. That's exactly how freedoms are taken, not through chaos, but through calm. This video is your wake-up call, and not just for the sake of watching, but for the sake of acting. Start questioning. Start talking. Start paying attention to what's changing around you, even if it seems small. Because freedom doesn't vanish in one loud crash. It disappears in silence. You still have a voice, you still have a choice, and you still have time. But none of those will mean anything unless you use them. Right now. Before the next line gets crossed, before the next freedom fades. Because once it's gone, you won't get a second warning. Number 10. The illusion of safety. One of the most effective ways to take control of a society isn't through fear, it's through comfort. When people believe they are being protected, they stop asking questions, they stop resisting, and they start surrendering little pieces of their freedom without even noticing. In 2025, many Australians are being told that tighter regulations, increased surveillance, and stricter controls are all in place to keep them safe. But at what point does safety become an excuse, an illusion, a tool used not to shield us, but to manage us? History tells us that the most dangerous threats often come dressed in good intentions. No one openly campaigns to take away freedom. Instead, They promise to protect you from harm, from chaos, from each other. But in the process, they build systems that are almost impossible to reverse. Once freedoms are surrendered in exchange for safety, the balance of power shifts, and it rarely shifts back. Safety becomes a shield behind which power grows quietly, out of sight and out of reach. And when people finally realize the cost, it's often far too late. True freedom doesn't come from being constantly watched, constantly guided, or constantly restricted. It comes from choice. It comes from responsibility. And yes, it even comes with risk. But a life without risk is a life without liberty. So the next time someone tells you a new law, rule, or policy is for your protection, don't just nod and move on. Ask who it really protects. Ask what it really costs. Because if safety requires silence, surveillance, and submission, it's not safety at all. It's control, dressed as comfort. And it's time we all started seeing the difference. Australia has always been known as the land of the free. Open skies, open roads, and a laid-back way of life. But beneath that easygoing surface, something deeper is shifting. From speech to privacy, movement to lifestyle, our freedoms are being slowly redefined. Not in headlines or breaking news, but in legislation, regulations, and quiet decisions made behind closed doors. And the most dangerous part? It's all happening while most people carry on, unaware that the country they love is slowly being reshaped. This isn't about fear-mongering. It's about facing uncomfortable truths. The systems being built today, no matter how justified, will define the lives we live tomorrow. Every freedom lost under the promise of safety sets a precedent for future control. That's why awareness isn't enough. We need active, informed citizens who ask hard questions, hold leaders accountable, and speak up before silence becomes law. You don't have to agree with everything in this video. But if any part of it made you pause, made you think, or made you question something you've taken for granted, that's a start. Because real change doesn't begin in parliaments or courts. It begins in moments like this, when everyday people start to pay attention. The only thing more dangerous than a government with too much power is a population that chooses not to notice. And now you've noticed. So, what comes next is up to you.